August 14th. I'm Scott.
I'm Rim.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, natural selection, and not the science kind.
Let's do this.
Man, I think it's FPS season again.
I think it just might be.
Well, the show started, we started recording a little bit late because Scott was playing Counter-Strike and he wouldn't stop.
Well, you know, it was an icy world, and I basically would spawn with the para, hold the button down, die, spawn with the para, hold the button down, die. And it was pretty much, I was living for the rounds where I actually killed the whole other team. It's like, you know, you got the para, so you go around the corner, you die. You go around the corner, you die. You go around the corner, you die. You take a tricky path, you die. You take a different tricky path, you get to the behind the enemy lines, and you just hose them down, and then you die.
See, pretty much whenever there's all those delays, I don't play Counter-Strike for a while. It's time to get back into it. I always play Icy World for like a couple weeks just to get my click on the guy's head skills back.
I think I was getting more headshots than any other sort of kill, but that might have been a result of the weapons of choice.
Well, remember, the trick with the para, if you really want to be good with it, is aim for the head and Nintendo wrist a little bit with the mouse.
That's what I did, is I would just go to the behind the enemy lines, I would aim at the general mass of enemies, aim high, and just shake it back and forth, and it would be like, headshot, 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 rampage. And I'd be like, yes. And then I would die.
Actually, in any Icy World, my favorite weapon is always the MAC-10. It's a headshot machine.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I was actually also kicking it up with the AUG and the M4.
Plus, over the weekend, something we used to do back when we had, free time, we actually played some games with some of you people out there.
Yeah. Ever since I bought all those id Software games on Steam, and I've been using my laptop a lot more, my desktop, which I don't use so much, has been sitting in Windows with Steam action going on. So, playing some DEF CON, playing some CS Source.
Man, Water is Poison handed our asses to us.
He did. I'm not so good at DEF CON, a game I've played maybe 4 times.
But we were playing some awesome 2-on-2 Counter-Strike with him and Bees Knees. And right before, Scott and I were talking in the chat, and he says, Rim, I'm worried. Do you think we're not as good as we used to be? What if we get hosed by these two kids? That's not going to represent well. And then we come around the corner, and they're right there, laid in perfect ambush. And 2 seconds later, I had headshotted both of them and was raping one of their corpses.
Yeah, my P90 had bullets left in it, and it was like, ah.
There was one particular set of kills. They ambushed Scott and got him, and I had almost no health. And I just ran around the corner with the pair and killed them both. And I think Bees Knees typed, and I quote, "Holy shit."
Yep.
Scott had some magnificent kills. They had me pinned down at one point.
Oh, and I went around, and I jumped off the... He was coming up the stairs, and Rim was at the top of the stairs.
I was behind the wall, like... with almost no health left, running out of bullets, and they were coming toward me, about to kill me.
And they came up the stairs, so I just walked to the side of the stairs, jumped off, and came up the stairs behind them, and they were dead.
It was absolutely beautiful. I called for assistance, and the next thing I know is Scott is standing there over the bodies of the fallen.
Yep.
God, I love Counter-Strike.
Yeah, we're good at that game. All right. I just want to say that playing Counter-Strike, I'm used to playing, 10-on-10, 20-on-20, whatever. Playing just a 2-versus-2 in a good map, I forgot how absolutely intense that is. 2-on-2 is not so bad. It's just 1-on-1 kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And, 2-on-1 sucks also. And
Yep.
3-on-2 still kind of sucks. 4-on-4 I think is pretty good. 10-on-10 is, of course, perfect, but, as long as you got...
perfect in a different way. I mean, when you got, the 2-on-2 or the 3-on-3, the strategies get very specific. Like, I'm gonna hide behind this and give you cover fire while you run forward with that flash.
Yep.
10-on-10, it's Bomb A, Bomb B, Camp, Bomb A.
Those are good strategies, though.
Or if you're a CT in certain maps, Hosties, Camp. One of the two.
Oh, good times, good times.
I love that game. Anyway,
I guess news, action, I don't know.
we don't have anything else. What are we going to talk about?
I've been playing some Paper Mario on the Virtual Console.
We've been playing a lot of Mario Strikers. I'm currently up in games, but not by much. I think I'm one.
And every game was always close. We've never had a domination.
I think I'm 1% better than Scott, and I think as we play more, that's going to even out, it does in most games.
I think I'm better than you now, but it sort of depends.
You just played a bunch, didn't you?
Well, no, it's like you played me, after you had just played a whole bunch and gotten a bunch of practice. And since we're both nubs, like if someone has played like a few more games against the computer, especially if they just played them and they're already in the groove, you know, it's like you were in the groove from playing the computer a bunch, and then me, who hadn't played since the day before, came in. I'm not going to win.
See, it's hard to say because sometimes I get in the groove by doing that, and sometimes I just get fatigued by doing that.
Yeah, it depends. But I think we need a lot more playing before we can just pick it up and be on the, the ball.
The only thing I do want to say is playing it single player, it's a game and it's really good. It's the same as the other Mario Strikers, just, better in every way. But playing it multiplayer, while it's really fun, in terms of tactics or strategy or how you actually have to play, it's a completely different game.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to learn a completely different style of play.
We'll talk about it next week or something. Not now.
Yeah.
But anyway. So this is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this thing. It's called Camp Hyrule. Obviously, it's a Nintendo thing.
I've heard of it from you.
Yeah. Basically, what Nintendo has been doing for the past few summers, I'm not sure how many years they've been doing it, but basically on the internet, they make a summer camp with a Zelda theme, and they give away prizes, and they have chat rooms, and they organize the users into cabins, and you have cabin activity things, and there's flash games, and all sorts of stuff. So it's sort of like a summer camp for people who can't go to summer camp, and it's got Zelda action and Nintendo marketing and such. And back in the day, when I first heard this thing existed, I was like, ooh, there's a super secret camp that only for cool people about Zelda. This is something I got to get in on. Oh, shits. So I tried to get in on it, and I failed. And the next year, I remembered it when summer came around, and I actually got in on it, and I was like, oh, mans, I'm in the super secret thing no one's in.
He was so excited.
So I log in, and it was totally lame. I mean, there were some cheesy flash games that weren't even as good as the kind on Congregate that had some Zelda themes. There were chat rooms full of punk Pokemon kids talking about how they lick mudkips, only they weren't even talking about how they lick mudkips. They were talking about other BS.
6 Geodudes that can't lose.
Well, no, it's like the chat rooms were like, man, Zelda is the best. OOT for the win. Not even that, because it was so more primitive than that, because it was so many years ago. They didn't have the new internet speak. It was just AOL kids.
See, I think the issue here is that Nintendo of America, when they do anything, they really only market and cater with these online things toward 12 to 12.5-year-olds.
Pretty much.
And I think the reason is they have to get those kids excited and get them on. Because you know how when you were 12, your attention span was like 0.2 seconds.
Pretty much.
So Nintendo just has to keep grabbing them and saying, Pokemon Zelda, and they just yell right back, Pokemon Zelda. But for us, they've already got us. They don't need to market the next Zelda game to me. I'm going to buy it no matter what.
It seems like everything Nintendo does is targeted to a specific, demographic, and they don't. And it's sort of annoying because even when something has a potential wide appeal, it's sort of like they narrow it down. They have all these it's like they're shooting with a sniper rifle when they should be using a shotgun sometimes.
Why do you say should? Because their strategy in terms of making money for Nintendo is brilliant and flawless.
Yeah, but there's some times where, they aim something at one particular spot and they hit it perfectly. But there's some people out there who could have been hit perfectly, but they only use one bullet per thing. And it's like, come on, you still could have done better.
Nintendo seems to always go after the low-hanging fruit first and go after it until they've got all of it. And then after that, they really don't care because they're already making so much money and will buy the games anyway. And there's no reason for them to cater to us in any way other than making games that are good enough for us to play while at the same time grabbing infinite hordes of 12-year-olds.
Well, it's basically you do one thing that's stupidly easy and you get $1 zillion. There's another thing you could do that is also easy but not stupidly easy that could get you another $1 zillion. And they just don't bother with the second thing.
I mean, look at this. In terms of this Camp Hyrule, what is this? Boil it down. It is just marketing.
Pretty much, yeah.
They don't need to market to anyone like us.
But here's the thing. This marketing, right? Apparently, check this out. There's no mention on this thing at all of the Phantom Hourglass Zelda game that's coming out. Not a one. And it seems like the only thing going on there is a contest to win a full-size Link statue.
I think what they're doing is they're just trying to imprint upon these 12-year-olds the word Zelda. Because remember, the kids don't grow up with that the way we did. So in order to get them into this Nintendo flock and make money off of them well into their 30s, they have to just brand it into their brains that Zelda is amazing and awesome.
My thinking, actually, is if you look at the talk on the internet, it's that people were saying, oh, Camp Hyrule isn't going to happen this year. And I think that Nintendo wasn't planning on making it happen this year, and that they sort of pulled it out at the last second. That's what I'm thinking.
Huh.
Because usually there's like a big build-up to Camp Hyrule. Like there's emails and there's stuff on websites and stuff. And, suddenly, this sort of people on the internet were talking like a couple of weeks ago, like, hey, where's Camp Hyrule at?
Maybe Nintendo realized they could have the same effect with much less effort.
Perhaps.
See, now the thing is, in terms of, marketing I don't care about, but when it comes to games, I just would like to point out that lately the style of Nintendo game that I like the most, not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of the style around the game, is Mario Strikers. Just the attitude of the characters and the character designs and the way they do everything.
Well, it's because instead of just taking, the Nintendo characters and putting them forth in their usual idiom,
it's a me, Mario.
They
it's
sort
a me,
of
Waluigi.
They sort of applied, another thing on top of that. And it's like now everyone is sort of badass and really wants to kick your ass at soccer. And it's like, oh yeah, So I think if they started taking their characters that are in every goddamn game, like look at Mario Kart. In Mario Kart, Mario is just Mario. What if in Mario Kart they made all the characters sort of like NASCAR and like, yeah, I'm riding around the track in a circle. Woo! I don't know, but they give them some attitude of some sort. They could really flash it up some.
But yeah, at any rate, I don't really care about Nintendo's marketing campaigns.
My main point of doing this news is to let anyone know who's thinking that, oh, Camp Hyrule, this cool, secret, awesome thing that's sort of exclusive. Don't even bother with it. It's a waste of your time.
It's a secret to everybody.
Yeah, just don't care about it. Don't worry about it. You're not missing out if you're not in Camp Hyrule. Go to real summer camp. It's 1,000 times better.
I've never been to summer camp.
Yeah,
really,
you suck.
Pretty much no one where I lived went to summer camp. Just it was a thing where people would hear like summer camp in a movie or on TV, and literally none of the kids I knew what it was. No
you
one
watched
went.
Salute Your Shorts?
Yeah,
that's what it was.
See, I had band camp instead.
But imagine if it was Salute Your Shorts last 8 weeks. How long did band camp last?
Band camp was 2 intense weeks.
Yeah, so 8 weeks.
I don't know. I wanted to be at home with my video games and all my friends and my bike and my stuff.
Yeah, well, it's the thing about summer camp is like you have your school friends and then you have your summer camp friends. You get twice as much action. Plus, you can have a lot more awesome action at summer camp that's not action you can have at home.
Like what?
It's only for summer camp people to know.
Uh-huh. Well, considering the ages of summer campers, I doubt it's the things that I'm particularly interested in.
I don't know. Summer camp, ages go up to, 15, 16-year-olds.
Even so, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've always been interested in PAX, and we want to go to it. I think it would probably be the perfect convention for me and Scott to go enjoy ourselves instead of, doing the things we do at conventions. And we just never get around to it. We're always busy, or it's always at the wrong time.
It's on the other side of the goddamn country.
Yeah, stupid other side of the country.
Yeah.
Maybe you in Europe who listen to our show don't realize it, but to get from where we live in New York to California...
It's Washington State, not California.
Oh, yeah. Well, California is where the other stuff we want to go to is.
Yes. But we have to get from New York to Seattle, Washington. Not Washington, D.C., which is easy to get to by train in a couple hours, but... Seattle, Washington State, on the other side of the country. It's touching the other ocean. We're touching the Atlantic Ocean. They're touching the Pacific Ocean. They're far away. They're about as far away as we are from London-ish, kind of, almost.
So, every time there's a PAX announcement, it's always something that says, oh, wow, Rim, you really should have been there. And you really should go there.
How many PAXs have we missed? 3?
We've missed all of them, obviously.
Obviously, but there's been a lot more than just one, and they were all awesome. We've missed all of them.
Everyone, the Anime Con out west, built itself up, and then when it actually happened, it failed to deliver. PAX, every year, it builds up, and then we don't go, and then it happens. And the news afterward is always, man, it was more awesome than you could have ever imagined.
They got that Omegathon action. They've got that awesome concert action. They've got the freaking video games and tabletop gaming galore. I could probably just stay in the tabletop gaming all day. They got more DSs than any con I've ever been to, supposedly. And I know all this, and I totally believe it. There's no doubt in my mind. Plus, it's sort of like the new E3 for consumer-facing, video game industry sort of dealer room action. So you got all that together, and... we don't get to go because it's too far away.
I have a feeling we're going to go next year. I think we're just going to bite the bullet and force ourselves to no matter what.
I think we'll just get a hotel in freaking Seattle, whatever, and take an airplane and maybe stay over there and do some other stuff that's to do in Seattle and go to the PAX and then come back.
But anyway, they have added yet another event. And not only that, but this event is attempting to break a world record.
Really? World record for most DSs on at once?
Well, apparently they're going to have a all con long, con wide LARP.
Aha.
Now,
what if I don't want to play in the LARP and I want to go to the con?
You don't have to.
All right.
Apparently, it's Terra Drive Live, and there's a bunch of details here. I'm not going to read them because you probably don't care. But basically, they're going to try to teach everyone the rules, and apparently it's pretty simple, and there's going to be zones and stuff, and a modified version of rock, paper, scissors with cards that give people power-ups and things, and you can get into clans and fight with people and take over territory and whatever. They haven't really said a lot yet. But yeah, they're going to try to teach everyone in line Thursday and Friday how to play, and just kind of wing it from there.
So how will they verify if they have broken a world record for largest LARP?
I imagine, because they say they're actually going to try to do the Guinness Book thing, so they're probably going to have someone there counting the number of people participating.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you know everyone's participating? If you just go down the line of 20,000 people and say, aha, I've taught them all the LARP, and then, the people start out like, hey, in line, playing a little bit, and then they all kind of go, eh.
Well, the way the Guinness Book works is that when they set a list of requirements, and then they send judges, and if those requirements are met, then they award the award, and that's it. So obviously the judges are going to set some sort of threshold for participation.
I just wonder what kind of requirements there'll be and how they'll verify them, because it sounds pretty difficult to, in a mass of 20,000 plus people, determine.
It is. The Guinness Book is completely stupid bullshit. I've always hated it.
Thank you for finally bringing up the point I was trying to make.
The Guinness Book is crap. The world records in it are almost always crap, except for the sports ones, and I don't care about it at all.
And there are some verifiable ones, like fattest guy, as of this year.
Actually,
you can just weigh it and find out.
Unless they've changed, they stopped doing anything that was an oddity of humanity because they thought that encouraged people.
But that was the only interesting part.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just remember when I was a kid in elementary school, we'd have the book club, whatever, and you could order a bunch of books, and I always ordered, like, Calvin and Hobbes books. Everyone in my classes always, every time, only got the Mad Libs and the Guinness Book for that month or year or whatever.
Nah.
And no one ever bought any other books, and I always thought they were all stupid.
I got real books, and once I got a Mad Lib. And other people got the Guinness Book, and I would look at the picture of the fattest guy, and then I wouldn't actually buy it.
Nah.
And that was it. Plus the school library had some Guinness books, and I would look at the picture of the fattest guy in there, or the tallest guy.
The thing is, things like this can be cool. I mean, we malign LARPing a lot, but most of that is just due to the fact that we went to school in Rochester, New York. The LARPing community in Rochester, New York, around the Rochester Institute of Technology, is by and large full of, let me put it delicately. Scary ass motherfuckers.
Yeah,
that's about as delicately as I can put it. These people,
they do fuck mothers.
The fact that is actually true. Anyway, scary people, we avoided them at all costs once we realized what these people were, and I say what with a lot of venom. But there is a lot of good LARPing, and back when I lived in Michigan, I used to go to a lot of local gaming cons, and I participated in a number of D&D based LARPs. And while some of them sucked, a lot of them were really, really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, LARPing isn't inherently bad. Like, it's not like all LARPs suck. The problem is the vast majority of LARPs out there suck, and it's actually pretty difficult to make a LARP good, but it's not impossible, and good LARPs do exist in many places. But
well, the other thing, gaming LARPs, like LARPs at a gaming con, tend to be awesome because they tend to be the weird ones, like a paranoia LARP, or they tend to be something like this where it's a really light, con-wide, kind of ongoing, hey, I'm totally going to stab you.
It's almost not even a LARP. It's just sort of like a silly kind of game in a way. But yeah, I guess it counts.
It is a LARP. I mean, people are going to have roles, and there's going to be territories and clans and whatever, and you walk around and do your thing.
But I mean...
So you're in line, and you see an enemy, and you just happen to attack him, have a little fight, and then keep going.
But a LARP at an anime con is not good. It's very bad. Do not do it. It's pretty much just scary fan people living out their anime fantasies and trying to bring you into their anime fantasies, or maybe taking turns fulfilling each other's anime fantasies. I don't know why cons have them. If I had an anime con, I wouldn't have a LARP. I'd be like, hey.
Well, the thing is, one, they're popular. Two, they can be run really well, and the people are into that. I mean, I don't like cosplays terribly much, even though I like cosplayers, and I don't like masquerades very much, just because I've seen all the good ones, I think, in the world.
Yep.
Total, ever. I don't think anything will ever beat the ones I've seen.
Maybe.
But you still got to have them at a con because a lot of the people there like them and they're big events.
I guess they do serve the purpose of keeping those scary people out of anything else while the LARP is going on.
I wasn't going to say that outright, but I was going to spend a few minutes and eventually make that point in a really roundabout way.
Well, good. Now we can just get on with the show, can't we?
Things of the day. So I stumbled upon this kind of randomly, but back in the day on the NES, Maniac Mansion was one of my favorite games.
Maniac Mansion is a game I had heard the name of, and I never really played it, even though somehow I knew all about it. But never really played it or owned it.
That might have been due to the Nintendo Power where they described many of the secrets in it.
I didn't have Nintendo Power.
Oh yeah, you're one of those heathens.
Yeah, so and I didn't get Game Pro until like 6th grade, and that was when there was already Sega Genesis action. So I don't know how I know about Maniac Mansion. I just do.
Well, Maniac Mansion is
in the microwave.
one of the more famous video games ever made. I mean, a lot of people have heard about it. It's a cult classic among numerous generations. And sadly, I never played it on a computer ever. The first time I ever saw it was on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yeah, basically, for those who don't know, I'm not going to go in depth about this, but LucasArts, the people who make, obviously Star Wars games and such, they made back in the day a bunch of point-and-click adventure games, such as Day of the Tentacle, Indiana Jones and the Atlantis something.
You do realize that Day of the Tentacle was Maniac Mansion 2, basically.
Sam & Max, Full Throttle, etc. And they were just these point-and-click adventure games where, you'd sort of click on the screen. And, the pirate one. Monkey Island.
Anyway.
Yes.
The games, especially Maniac Mansion, were really kind of offbeat and goony, and Maniac Mansion was really kind of dark and weird, especially as a kid. I mean, walking into the house and you go into the kitchen, you're breaking into this mansion, basically. And suddenly, when you get to the end of the kitchen, this crazy old woman in a nurse's outfit sees you and starts screaming and chasing you, and you freak out. And I remember just looking at things. There's weird stuff everywhere, and you can pick it all up and mess with it, and the game wasn't really meant to be beaten on the first try because you could very easily make it impossible to win. The game was more one of those, you explore the world, you start to figure things out, and eventually you figure out how to beat the game. And there were many, many different ways to, quote-unquote, beat the game.
Yeah, but basically it's all about exploring this wacky mansion and looking at all this weird stuff and trying to do weird stuff. And there's a lot of weird things you could do and weird things you could encounter. And it was just a lot of fun to sort of poke all the bits and see what they all did.
So thus, my things of the day, we'll talk about these games in some show someday, are 2 speed runs of Maniac Mansion. One on the computer and one on the NES. And they do it in just under 10 minutes, both of them.
Wow, yeah.
The thing is, they look very different. And granted, part of that is the fact that, of course, Nintendo of America, being prudish as they were back then, censored and replaced a lot of things in Maniac Mansion.
Well, I mean, Maniac Mansion was the only one of these games to ever come out on the NES. All the rest of them just sort of came out for like DOS and the PC and the Macs and not really anything else. I guess that's because they had a mouse.
It was actually really hard to play Maniac Mansion on the NES. I'll admit that.
It pretty much sucks. If you want to play Maniac Mansion seriously, you should get the PC version. There's a thing called Scum VM that you can get for free. And then you can get the data files for all these different games by buying them, which is the only legal way. And then you can play them on modern computers.
Well, I'm pretty sure that in Day of the Tentacle, if I recall correctly, there was a place where you could end up booting up a computer and playing Maniac Mansion 1 in its entirety.
Wow. I did not know that. I'll have to go check that out.
The one thing I want to point out, I wouldn't recommend you watch the entire speedruns unless you're a masochist. They're interesting in that they show you the quickest path to beat the game, as far as I can see, and they show you the differences in the graphics and the aesthetics and the music. I'm just going to point out the music. You can say what you will about the music or lack thereof in one or other of these versions. The music did get really annoying, though, I remember as a kid. I usually turned it off after about 5 minutes.
Nah.
Granted, I forget the term for it, but the music wasn't just like theme music playing out of nowhere. Every kid had a CD player or a tape player or something on him that you could turn on or off that played the music.
Ah.
But
did they have CDs in those days?
I don't remember. I probably.
It must have been a Walkman. Or
CDs
boombox.
were pretty old. I had a CD player relatively early.
Yeah, but I mean, this was like way early.
Yeah.
This game didn't come on CD-ROM. It came on floppy disks.
Oh, of
it
course.
wasn't until the later ones they came on CD-ROM.
Remember, CDs were out long before there were CD-ROMs with computer games on them.
I know, but you get my point.
Yeah, I do get your point. But the other thing I'd like to point out is that these games are really fun if you're just playing through them and you're exploring.
Yeah,
and
if you just try to play one of these games, they're all great. There's a reason that someone made the Scum VM thing to allow us to play them in modern machines, because they're still good games worth playing.
But the thing is, a speed run of a game like this almost makes the game look like shit, because it skips all the interesting stuff and it's just run, object, run, object, meteor in the Edsel, launch into space, game over.
Yep. I guess if you like playing these games, after you play them all, they're putting out new Sam and Max games in sort of episodic fashion, but you can like buy at the store or on Steam like packs of all the episodes. So if you're liking the Sam and Max, especially the old one, they got new ones that people are pretty pleased with apparently. You can go for those. All right, so my thing of the day. Rim, you love the Intellivision, don't you?
Well, the Intellivision 2.
All right. Anyway, this is a video from 1983 or 84.
If I may.
Yes, when we were 1 or 2 years old.
If it were.
Yes. And this video is by some people at Mattel Electronics, home of the Intellivision.
Aha.
And basically, it's a bunch of them just fooling around in the office making a silly video. It's sort of like they knew YouTube was going to exist in the year 2007. So 23 years in advance, or 24 years in advance, they decided to make this video knowing that one day it would be on YouTube for us to watch, where of a bunch of silly old school video game programmers fooling around in the office making jokes, hitting each other with water balloons, being naked.
What was that?
Making fun of video games.
What was that?
One of the guys is naked.
Actually naked?
I'm not sure, but you don't see any of his bits, but he could be naked under there.
See, that's very misleading, because there are many pictures of me, particularly in the ocean, at the shore, or back in high school in band, where it looks like I'm naked.
Basically, he's sitting in a chair at a table in a conference room, and you can see his torso above the table, and he's got his legs up on the table, but his bottom and his bits are below the table in the seat.
I will wager.
He's got some shorts on.
That he's wearing some sort of Speedo, maybe a one-piece bikini down there.
Possibly, but the point is, it's a funny video made in the olden times, and it's got a lot of that old styling kind of early 80s computer nerd kind of humor, which is almost identical to YouTube current day humor. So you should watch it.
Man, I suddenly have this urge to get my grandpa to send me the old Intellivision 2 so I can play those games in a format that works.
Yeah. My favorite part, actually, is the guy, when he starts talking about there's a video game for everything. What video game could we possibly make next? And he's got just this pile of all these video game boxes, and he's throwing them all around.
They made a lot of games for the Intellivision. And
it's like every sport imaginable. Curling. Yeah.
I played a curling game.
I know.
It's not good.
It's not. Real curling's not good, so how can fake curling be any better?
Curling's a pretty fun sport. It's interesting.
No, not really.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Have you ever played it?
Once.
When?
A time.
When?
Back in the day.
What day?
I don't remember.
How do you curl, Scott?
One person takes the rock, and you try to throw the rock down the ice, and some other people with the brooms go broom, 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 and they want the rock to stop in the bullseye area. But then another person throws a rock, and they might bump you out. So it's sort of like shuffleboard with ice.
What does the brooming do?
It makes the rock either go faster or slower. It sort of makes the ice, you can broom the ice in a certain way to sort of guide the rock to where you want it to be.
Most of what you've said could be derived from common knowledge of the sport. I don't believe for a second that you've ever curled.
Alrighty.
I'm going to call you out.
I curled one time.
When?
One time.
Give me a year. Give me a range of years.
Late 90s.
Late 90s.
Between 95 and 98.
In what circumstances?
My friend's dad was like all about the curling, so one time I just happened to be there, and I curled one time.
Happened to be there where? Did he have a curling rink?
Yeah, there was at the Wonderland of Ice place. They curl on the ice that they usually play hockey on. There's a curling time.
So you went there with the family, and then you curled with the dad.
No, I threw the rock one time. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
That was it. And I said, it's shuffleboard. Might as well play shuffleboard, which is better. So seeing as we're all back into the FPS actions, we remembered, hey, there are some FPSs we played back in the day. I wonder if we can play those FPSs again in addition to, Counter-Strike.
Yep. I think part of it, with at least in terms of the show, was that, like, Alex was over and you two were in the living room talking about FPS and whatever. And I was in the other room and Natural Selection came up. And then suddenly I ran into the room and said, we never did a show on this, did we?
I guess not. Let me search again to make sure. But I'm pretty sure we never done a show on Natural Selection, and not the Darwin kind.
And sure enough, we hadn't. Scarily enough. I mean, this is one of my favorite games ever.
Actually, I just searched, and apparently we have mentioned the game in the show before, because once I did a news about how there might be dynamic infestation in the sequel. Remember that video?
Yeah, I remember that video. It was pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, but who knows if we'll ever see that.
I don't know why you searched for that. We already did that, weeks ago when we decided to do this show.
I didn't search. I wasn't there. I don't remember. Oh, well. Whatever.
Yeah. Natural Selection is a mod to the FPS Half-Life.
Yes, and, calling it a mod is sort of crazy. I mean, technically speaking, it is a mod. It uses the Half-Life 1 engine and creates a different game on top of that engine. But, more strictly speaking, this is more like a total conversion of Half-Life. I mean, only the most expert of FPS players, if you gave them this game, would recognize that it was actually Half-Life 1. Not Half-Life 2, Half-Life 1, the game from, the 90s.
Now, it was made by a guy named Charlie Cleveland, but most people in the world know him as Flayra.
Flayra.
Yep. I think he eventually went on to found the company that's now Unknown Worlds, which is theoretically working on Natural Selection 2.
And Natural Selection for the Source engine.
The odds of Natural Selection 2 coming out are pretty low, I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposedly working on it, and once in a while there's drips and drabs of news and they say stuff, but I've never seen anything substantial other than that dynamic infestation video that was in news back in December 5th, 2006. But yeah, I'm not getting my hopes up for any more Natural Selection. I'm just going to be happy with the Natural Selection we've already got.
Now, the thing is, I mean, I say this is one of my favorite games ever, and I think Scott will agree on that point, but
it's a pretty good FPS, so I got to tell you that.
I mean, it's one of those games, periodically, like we talk about anime and certain shows like Ava, Bebop, Escaflowne, they just, Trigun, they come up again and again and again, and they're timeless. They never die. They had such an influence on us. And in video games, the same way. And in FPSs particularly, it's pretty much Counter-Strike, Natural Selection, Tribes 2.
Pretty much. The thing about Natural Selection is it's one of those things where someone comes up with a genius idea, and maybe it's an idea that a lot of people have come up with before. Let me tell you, this is an idea that a lot of people have come up with before. But no one is able to execute the idea, or no one does it. Like, for example, the idea of Dig was an idea that Slashdot people had for years and years and years and years, but no one actually did it, or did it successfully for the longest time. Natural Selection is pretty much the only successful implementation, as far as I'm concerned, of an RTS plus FPS ever. And it's a really good implementation of that somewhat obvious, but everyone recognizes the awesomeness idea.
So let's describe the game a little bit. Basically, it's an FPS, straight up, but it's asymmetric, and there are two teams. The aliens, the Kara, the infestation, whatever you want to call them, and the Marines, the humans, the quote-unquote good guys.
You can tell this is based on the movies, with the aliens and the spitting and the stomach exploding and the such. Yeah,
now,
it's that kind of theme.
In the game, I mean, you're pretty much going to be sure that that is definitely an influence when you see the Sentry turret.
Yeah, and, some of the guns.
Now, a lot of games that are FPSs have 2 or 3 sides, and they're asymmetric, like Pirates, Vikings, Knights, where each side has different but equal powers, and as a result, they have different advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, even Counter-Strike, terrorists, counter-terrorists, they have different weapons. They're not exactly the same, but they're, one team is not better than the other team.
Natural Selection takes it one step further in that not only are the teams themselves, in terms of their capabilities, completely different and asymmetric, but the way you play the game, the way you see the game, and the way you interact with the game on a fundamental level are completely different.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not like any other FPS you're going to play. I mean, basically what it comes down to is the aliens, when they play in a game of natural selection, are trying to kill all the Marines. They want to spread their alien infestation around the entire map and eat all the Marines and eat all the Marine equipment. And if they can destroy all of the Marines' important machines and eat all the Marines can't teleport in, and the aliens have conquered that place, and they can infest it with aliens all they want with no interference.
Yep, so basically, if the last Marine dies and there's no way for anyone to respawn, the game is over and the Marines lose.
Because the Marines don't respawn. They have these teleporters, and new Marines are teleported in from Marine base. Also, the Marines are trying to clean out the alien infestation. They will not be satisfied until all of the aliens and all of the alien hives are destroyed, so that they can use this, Marine, human facility for its original intended purpose again.
Obviously, it's some sort of space base that was taken over by the aliens, and you're coming to save everybody.
And there's a lot of different bases and things.
Yeah, you find out that, everybody's dead. Now we just got to flamethrower the place and then put more scientists here and hope this never happens again.
Yep.
Now, which one should we talk about first? Because I think the Marines and the aliens are equally interesting.
They are equally interesting. That's part of what makes this game awesome, is usually when you have an asymmetric game where you have two or more teams that are so drastically different, you find people really want to stick with just sort of one side. Like people playing World of Warcraft, everyone likes the different teams in World of Warcraft or StarCraft, but any particular person likes to stick with just one, usually. I mean, you find a Zerg guy. He's all Zerg. Or especially like Warhammer. People pick one and they stick with it, but that's probably because of money mostly. But in natural selection, people who play, most of them play both sides, and they don't really mind. It's not like, shit, I'm on aliens, crap. It's like, all right, aliens, all right, Marines, whatever. It's all good, even though the two teams are so different.
They're basically different games. Though I will say there is one big exception to that, and that is the Commanders.
Yes, okay,
but they're a breed in of themselves. Let's talk about the Marines first, because you mentioned the RTS FPS, and
yes.
I think that alone, that's what sold me on the game before I even knew anything else.
Yep. So the way the Marines work is they spawn into the map, and they're Marines, and they walk around, and they have guns, and it's like playing a normal FPS. You have a machine gun, a light machine gun. It's not very powerful, but it is pretty good. You got a pistol and a knife, and you can you can use your use button to sort of work different machines, and you walk around the map. You're trying to kill aliens and such.
Now, there's one chair, this big machine that's sitting there in the room you start in, and that's the command chair.
And whoever goes and sits in that chair is playing a different game from everybody else. When they sit in that chair, suddenly they're playing an RTS. They look at the map, the FPS map, the same map that everyone else is playing an FPS on, and they see it with an overhead view, and it looks a lot like StarCraft, and you could build things on the map, and you have resources that you can spend and earn on different things.
You can group up Marines and give them a waypoint, and then the game will tell you when they get there.
Yeah.
The humans you're playing with are no longer FPS and humans as far as you're concerned. They're just units that you have at your disposal.
But unlike a game like Command & Conquer, where the units do exactly what you say, the units are real people. Each single one is a real person playing an FPS, and they might suck. Their individual skill determines whether they'll win or lose a lot of the time, and they might not follow your orders. They might be incompetent. They might follow your orders too well. So it's imagine if when you're playing Command & Conquer, every guy that you gave an order to was a real person playing an FPS.
The nice thing is, though, while they might not listen to you sometimes, and sometimes just there's problems, at least every individual Marine will get out of the way of something dangerous if it's right there and coming to kill him.
Yes, they will do that.
Command & Conquer, not so much, and I lost a lot of men to my own harvesters.
Okay, so the commander, basically, what he tries to do is, first, the goal, unless they have a crazy strategy, I'm not going to talk about crazy strategies in this game, because there are many, is to get more resources. And the way you do this is there are certain points on the map, which everyone knows where they are once you know the maps, where there are resource nodes. And the commander can say, all right, I'm going to spend X resources to build a resource node there. And a resource node appears, a resource harvesting thing appears on the node. And that isn't enough, because if it was that easy, what would be the point of the game? The guy would just build resource nodes all over the map right at the beginning, get all the resources, and win.
Well, remember, what Scott's saying applies to any structure that the commander can build ever.
Yeah. When he builds the resource node or any other structure, Marines have to go over to it and make it work. They have to go stand next to it and push a button on it in order to fix it and turn it on, and it takes a while. So you build a resource node, you're going to need Marines standing next to it to make it work, to defend it from being eaten by aliens before it starts working, etc., etc., etc.
Now, this really, really creates an interesting game. First, we'll talk about from the player's perspective who's not the commander. So you spawn, and you're in this really dark world with weird music, and there's noises all around. The atmospheric effects in these games are absolutely amazing.
For Half-Life 1, they're double amazing.
The maps are so well made and so perfect.
I think they're the best maps in all of FPS's, period. Pretty much.
And so you get up and someone's elected the commander and they start building stuff. They secure the base, they build some stuff. Maybe they build a shotgun and they give it to the player that they knew from the previous game was really good. And then you go out and it'll divide you into teams like, you three, go to this waypoint, wait for me to build a resource tower, build it and defend it until I tell you otherwise. You three, go build this resource tower, then go to this other point and wait for further orders, defending that point at all costs.
Yeah.
You stand and watch that hallway. If anyone comes, yell and scream.
Granted, that's how it's supposed to work on paper, and if you practice with like a team for a long time, it will work like that. But in general, pickup games, it doesn't work like that all the time.
Actually, now that I've been playing again, it works like that almost all the time.
Really?
Everyone listens to the commander. The commander is God.
Uh-huh.
Granted, I think it's just that the game's been out so long that it's mostly hardcore players and newbies who really want to get into the game.
All right. But anyway, you go out and you stand next to this resource point, and it sort of appears out of nowhere. And now you're holding on to it. And while you're holding on to it, trying to turn it on and make it work to get your team more resources so you can win, aliens might be coming.
So usually you got like two guys building it, and one guy standing off to the side with his
machine gun,
kind of nervous, looking around. Because basically, whenever you're walking around anywhere as a Marine, if you are alone, you're probably already dead. You just don't realize it yet. Because the aliens just come out of nowhere, and they wait for you in ambush. You go around a corner, you're being real careful, you're swinging your machine gun around. Suddenly you hear tick, 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 and before you can finish turning around, you're done, you're dead. You tell the commander there's some skulks over in data processing.
Yeah, I like how on the maps, every part of the map has a name, and that name shows up on your screen, so you always know where you are. So you can learn the maps and easily communicate about different parts of the map to your team. Like, guys in data, guys in sensory, bad guys in, dark hallway.
And parts of the map are worth more than other parts, and there's choke points, and there's vents.
Yeah, there's like, some of the maps have double res, where there's a spot that has 2 resource nodes. Some of the alien hives can only be built in 3 different locations, so where those are pretty important spots. And the place where the Marine base starts is also pretty important. So
now, it's really scary walking around, but the fun part is, it's not like Counter-Strike or FPS and most people are used to. You move really slow, and you make a lot of noise. If you don't want to make a lot of noise, you hold down shift or whatever, and you walk.
Really slow.
You go so slow, it's almost painful. And furthermore, I wish more games did this. Counter-Strike would be a lot better if they did this. In natural selection, you move at your normal speed when you're walking forward or turning or whatever. But if you were trying to walk backwards while looking behind you, you move slow.
Yep.
So that means instead of, in any Counter-Strike game, you're backing away from an enemy shooting, and that's just what you do. In this game, you have a choice the moment aliens come. Either stand your ground and shoot, retreat slowly, shooting behind you, or
shooting in front of you. You're walking backwards.
Yeah, you're walking backwards, but you're still shooting back in the direction you came from.
If you try to walk backwards and shoot forwards, you will walk insanely slow. Even if you're not trying to shoot, walking backwards is more than twice as slow as walking forwards.
So as a result, when something horrible suddenly happens, like you think you're good, you almost built the phase gate, you've got 4 Marines with you, and suddenly 3 fades run into the room, and everyone's going, fade, fade, fuck, they got an early fade, fuck, they got a second hive, man, that game is great.
It's a good game.
But at that moment, a lot of Marines, you'll see them, they know they can't win. They're not even going to try to retreat in an orderly fashion because they don't want to die. They turn around and run.
Usually that's not enough, but it's a lot faster than trying to back up while shooting your piddly pop gun at this giant nasty alien.
It makes the game a lot more realistic and a lot more immersive and a lot more frightening.
Yeah. So basically, as the Marines, you're trying to build a lot of structures, which means you need Marines to go to where the structures are, build them, defend them from aliens, get a lot of resources. See, you can build most of the structures in your base where they'll be relatively well defended. And you can build defensive things like automatic turrets, a la Aliens, the movie and such, that will defend your structures when Marines aren't there to do it, themselves. But the resource nodes are all around the map, and you need to go and get them in order to have enough resource points for the commander to pay for all those important things. And you need to pay for all those important things, or else Marines won't be able to get better guns, and they won't be able to get better armor, and they won't be able to get better anything, and aliens will own you. And basically, you're just trying to get enough resources to get enough upgrades to your weapons and armor to be able to go out and destroy the aliens without worrying about it. Because if you just go out there with the stuff you start the game with, they're going to bite you. Unless you're really, really good, which is unlikely.
Now, the commander there's all this stuff he has to deal with that you don't really see. But he has a tech tree, he spends resources on different things, and eventually...
He's basically playing an RTS.
Yeah, he builds up, he can research and eventually get shotguns, and the super machine guns, and grenade launchers, and jetpacks, and the super awesome heavy armor.
Yep, and there's also other stuff he can buy, like, that you might not realize, like the sensors that will tell you where aliens are, or the beacon, which if all the humans when you die as a human, there are these teleporters that you teleport in. I talked about them already. They're basically the spawn points, and if you have no spawn points left, no one can spawn into the map. So what sometimes will happen is there'll be maybe 2 or 3 spawn points, and all the humans will die because they rushed an alien hive and they all got killed. And they'll spawn in kind of slowly, because they can only spawn in at a certain number of Marines per second, or per minute per spawn point. And the beacon is one of the things the commander can use to say, everyone spawns who's dead immediately. And it's good for the last ditch when the aliens are in the base and everyone died. Suddenly everyone spawns in the base, and maybe you'll have enough to push the aliens out.
That's one thing about natural selection that makes this game so great. Is that in a lot of, once you've lost a game, you've lost, and now crap, now I gotta wait for this to play out, whatever, and people just stop caring. In this game, even though you'll know you've lost a good 5 or 6 minutes before it finally happens, you lost the double res, you tried to retake it and you failed, the aliens have the whole eastern half of the map, you're basically being defensive, all your expeditions out fail, all the scouts you send out get killed. Eventually, the Marines kind of realize they're all gonna die. And the commander realizes this, and you move into this. It's weird because you don't feel bad about it. You just realize that now it's time for the last stand.
Yep.
And you start just barricading yourselves in and trying to live as long as possible. And it's just as fun as when you're winning.
I think part of it, what it is that the game makes you feel as if you've always got a chance. Like, I could sneak out all alone, get into a place if there's no aliens there, and totally own with my little knife. I could cut up their whole hive, and I've done it before. It happens. It's not common, but there's always this crazy chance that with some covert mission of 2 Marines with knives going out there, maybe with a little help from the commander, maybe a shotgun, they can totally turn the game around, or at least make a setback for the aliens.
Yep. Or maybe you defend it so well, and you defend it early enough when you realized the tide was against you, and you held out long enough to build out the resources to suddenly make a heavy train and march your asses out.
Yeah. I think what it is that even if you've already lost, you are still able to sort of hold the enemy back. It's not like you've lost and then you're crushed. And because you still have the ability to hold them back, you really feel like you can make a difference. If you can hold them back, why can't you push them back, And if they decide to suck, then you kind of can sometimes.
You really start to develop a camaraderie with the people on your team, because everyone's voice chatting. Pretty much almost everyone who plays this game voice chats, and you hear people talking, and
it's necessary.
Commander giving orders, and you really start to feel like you're a part of something. And it's really scary when you're out with a team, and the team gets taken out by a sudden fade, and it's just you, and you survive because you hit around the corner. Or the team got taken out around the corner, and you were guarding the rear. Then
or when you
left.
decide on your own that you're gonna take your welder and open up this vent with your welder, and you're gonna sneak through these vents where nobody's there, and it's all dark, and there's no one in there, not even aliens, because it was a vent that was welded shut. And then you're sneaking through the secret way all alone, and it's going to come out who knows where on the map, and there's going to be stuff there, who knows what. And you're going to open up the other end with your welder, and ooh, it's pretty cool.
A single Marine, and if an alien comes, you're dead, and there's almost nothing you can do about it. It's frightening.
But if no aliens come, you can fuck shit up.
Yep.
All right, so let's talk about the aliens.
Well, I got one more thing to say about the Marines.
All right.
The way the guns work, not going to go into details, but unlike Counter-Strike, where, you got to hit the head, pick, and double tap, this is a game, much like certain scenes in certain movies involving chain guns, where the light machine gun, your primary weapon, shoots a fucking lot of bullets really fast in a general direction.
But they're kind of weak.
No, but the thing is, the big gun shoots a bunch more bullets in a general direction.
Big bullets. Like, freaking imagine, like, Desert Eagle bullets, like, on a chain. Just,
the guns are ludicrous. The point is that when you fire, it's not like, I gotta walk slowly and, like, pick the guy off all realistically. It is Aliens the movie guns, where you run down the hall with your minigun, blowing shit up and hoping you don't die.
There's a grenade launcher that shoots it's basically a revolver that holds 4 grenades, and it's like, doom, 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 doom. And then you reload it kind of slowly and carefully. But when you fire those 4 grenades, god damn, do you fire 4 fucking grenades.
The visceral feeling you get when you fire any weapon in this game is amazing because it's basically point and shoot and empty your clip. You pretty much empty your clip every time you shoot.
The other things the commander can buy for you are the heavy armor and the jetpack. Let's just talk about this for a second. The heavy armor, you can't have them both at the same time. It's one or the other. The heavy armor basically makes you really hard to kill. Aliens will have a seriously difficult time killing you because you have so much armor on. And plus, they usually give you a welder with the heavy armor, which lets you repair someone else's armor, and they repair your armor. So you're basically, when you have a train, it's called a heavy train, a whole bunch of guys in heavy armor lined up with welders and guns.
Which is generally the goal of any commander.
It's really hard for any aliens to fuck with that, and they just march around the map in a group, destroying everything. Like, it's just a big alien cleanup
But
crew.
then again, the aliens can win, because if the chain, like, say they realize the chain's coming, and they have one Onos, and they send him in the middle of the chain, and the chain splits in 2, and then they start picking off the stragglers one by one, which is actually kind of easy to do.
Yep.
A heavy by himself is just as dead as an unarmored guy by himself.
Depending on how strong the aliens are. But anyway, yeah, the heavy armor, you walk really slow, but you're a freaking, like, it's like freaking robot armor. You're dangerous as all hell. Then the jetpack is slightly different, because you don't have the heavy armor when you have the jetpack. You're pretty easy to kill, just as easy to kill as anything else, but you can fly around and move really fast all over the place like crazy. And it's kind of difficult to control the jetpack. It takes a lot of practice with the jump button and such, but once you got the hang of it, you can fly around with your mad skills and basically zoom past aliens and go straight for the hive and start fucking it up. Or, flying aliens can't escape you by hiding in vents and places. And you can fly around getting otherwise difficult to reach things and just raping them apart.
Now, the aliens, playing as an alien, like I said, is basically a completely different game.
It's really silly and awesome.
First off, there's no commander. Instead, there's a hive mind. And the way that works is you get a bunch of information constantly, visually and audibly, about the state of your fellow aliens and the state of the game. So you can see in the distance all these kind of glowing waypoints, all your alien friends, all your alien structures, where your hives are, all this stuff. And you hear noises and sounds that tell you things like an alien is under attack, and then you see that alien blinking red and you know where they are. Or structure is under attack, and you know that the Marines are attacking some alien structure somewhere.
There is no commander on the alien team. Everyone is the same. You're all basically, there's no difference between one alien player and another alien player.
Everyone gets all the same information, and the players, just by talking, come to a general consensus as to how to act based on that information.
Yep. Now, you might be saying, well, your team gets resources, right? And yes, you do. You are competing for the same resource nodes the Marines are competing for. However, what happens is instead of the resources going to one alien who decides how they will be spent, they are divided up semi-evenly according to some algorithm amongst all the players, and everyone can spend their share of the resources in the way they see fit.
Now, the aliens you start as, everyone starts as the same little alien, and you get one of 3 hive locations. You all start there, and then this voice says, "Cleanse the intruders." And then you run off your little skulk, And skulks basically have one thing they can do. And
Bite.
they just go bitey, 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 bitey,
Bitey. Basically, it's an alien where the front of it's a little tiny alien, and the front of it is just a big mouth. That's all it is a mouth. And you're pretty small, and you're really fast, and you're hard for Marines to kill, and you can go on the walls. Without doing it, you just walk on the walls or the ceilings. It doesn't matter.
So generally what you do is the game starts, and the aliens either all rush the Marines start, and there's this sudden, immediate melee at the start of the game where, and then it kind of evens out into battle lines. Or the aliens kind of scatter, and they set up ambushes. That's what I usually do. There'll be like 3 skulks.
You go to like 2 doors away from the Marine base near one of the resource points, and you wait for a Marine to come by. And you're hiding up in the ceiling in like a dark crevice. And the Marine is going to walk right under you. So you just wait for him to walk through the doorway, and he keeps walking. He doesn't hear you. He doesn't see you. You're hiding in the dark. You're a little tiny alien in the ceiling. And after he walks by you, you fall down off the ceiling, go up behind him, and bite his butt right off. Just
Yeah, it takes like 1 or 2 bites to kill someone.
And it's kind of weird because playing as the Marines, aliens are scary and dangerous. Like, whoa, shits, like in the movie Aliens. Playing as the aliens, they're kind of silly and happy. Like, bitey.
I feel really sympathetic toward the aliens when I'm playing an alien. I like them. I like them a lot. Those fucking Marines should leave them alone. But when I'm a Marine, aliens are scary and they kill me immediately.
Aliens just want to have fun, let me tell you.
Now think of this. When you're a Marine, aliens just kill you if you're alone. When you're an alien, if a Marine sees you, you're pretty much dead.
Yes, the reason the aliens just kill Marines when they're alone by default is because Marines usually don't see the aliens coming. The aliens are small and fast, and they're on the walls and the ceilings, and they come and they bite them before the Marines have a chance. But if you're an alien and there's a Marine down the hallway and he sees you sitting there, he has a gun. You're far away. You gonna bite him from down the hallway? I think not. His machine gun will kill you.
You have to sneak up on him somehow.
You have to move really fast and really cleverly. And even then, like running up, if you think rushing at the Marine by running up the wall while rushing at him, he sees you. He has a machine gun. It shoots a lot of bullets. They're pretty weak individually, but there's a lot of them.
Now
they will kill you.
This is the sign of an excellently designed asymmetric game. The Doom game, I hear, is the same way, where if you play as one side or the other side, both sides are equally afraid of the other side. Or you think, wow, how could I ever win against that? But you think that for every side you hear about.
Yep.
That's the sign of a perfect game, or at least a really good game.
A really good asymmetric game.
And in this game, I mean, the worst thing in the world is you're an alien, and you go, like, you're walking on your way to a resource tower, you're going to cap it, do whatever, and you come around the corner, and suddenly you see, like, 4 Marines working on stuff, and they're all talking, and you don't know what's going on, but you see them and you hear them, and they haven't seen you yet, and you don't know what to do. And then suddenly, while you're thinking, like you're trying to back into the shadows, one of them looks up, and suddenly they're all pointing guns at you.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. It's like Marines will walk down the hallway, and a bunch of aliens are hiding there. Oh, no! But there'll be the same situation where a bunch of aliens walk down the hallway, and there's a bunch of Marines with a bunch of equipment they're setting up, and it's like, oh, shit, we can't go over there. Goddamn.
Now, I said the Marines are all talking, and I was serious. One thing about this game, I talked a lot about the environmental stuff, and a lot of that's in the maps, but it's also in the game itself. When you're a Marine or an alien, your guy, depending on how exerted you are and what you're doing, will say things into his comm and just say things and make noises. And the aliens kind of burgle and belch and groan and just creak and make noises all the time. And the Marines just keep saying stuff. So you'll be like sneaking along, and then around the corner you hear 2 Marines say something to each other.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It really does feel real despite the lack of modern graphics or sound technologies.
Now, there are other kinds of aliens you can be.
Well,
basically,
the way it works
the resources, like Scott said, get distributed around evenly. And you can either turn into this one kind of alien, the best kind, called a Gorge, and they're the only ones who can build.
Yeah, the default alien, if you die as an alien and come back to life, you're a Skulk. You can spend, 10 resource points, I think?
Yep.
To become a Gorge. Basically, your alien will go pop and turn into an egg, and you have to wait while you're sitting in the egg. And sometimes Marines will come and kill you while you're an egg, and that's not pleasant because there's nothing you could do about it.
Only if you're stupid.
Only if you're stupid and you turn into an egg in the middle of, the hallway where there's Marines walking around. And then after a little while, when you're done gestating in your egg, you pop out and you're a different kind of alien. You're a gorge, which is nothing like a skulk at all.
Now, that's the only one that can spend resources. Real quick, there's also the lurk and the fade and the onos. And the onos stands for onos.
That is exactly
Because
what onos stands for.
Both sides have this moment where you realize that you are fucked. And when you're the Marines, it's when you're doing your stuff and you think you're doing okay. You're not doing great, but you're doing okay and you're going to win. And then suddenly, some guy somewhere out there yells, "Fuck! Onos!"
Onos! Onos!
That
And
means that some alien had so much excess resource.
like 100 resource points, which is ludicrous.
that they decided, I'm going to spend that all on being an Onos. Now remember, if you die as an Onos, you go back to being a Skulk and all
you
those
lose
resources
all
are gone.
those resource points.
So that guy is sure of himself, and an Onos will take out almost any number of Marines.
An Onos is basically this giant rhinoceros. You go from being this little tiny bitey guy to a giant rhinoceros, and you can hit people with your horn. You can charge into people and ram them with your horn. You can devour Marines with full health and the most expensive equipment whole with a single click. And then they will basically sit there, unable to do anything as they watch Goatsy for a few seconds. And then you eventually shit them out when they die from the horrible acid in your giant rhinoceros stomach.
Now, theoretically, if they hack the Onos to pieces, they can pull you out of the stomach and save you.
If there are other Marines with them, so let's say there's 3 Marines with heavy armor and heavy machine guns, and you eat one of them and they're in your stomach dying. If the other 2 kill you before the one inside of you dies, basically you die around him, and he just stands up and goes, "Oh, God, that was disgusting.
I'm not going to talk much about the other aliens, but
Yes.
Scott and I...
The lurk is a flying alien that can spit gas at people, and he's pretty stealthy and annoying. He's basically the pestering alien. He flies around pestering the Marines.
When I was much better at the game, I used to always do the early lurk, but I'm not good enough to do that anymore.
Yeah, the lurk can fly, which is pretty good, especially if the other people have jetpacks.
And the fade is just the dangerous. It runs into the room and kills like 4 Marines suddenly, and then disappears.
The fade is sort of like controlling the fade is the only one that's anything like controlling a human, because it's a bipedal alien, and it has 2 really dangerous claws. It can go really fast. It can shoot acid rockets. It's basically freaking dangerous, but not an Onos. And then the Gorge is the alien that builds things.
You know, we've already gone pretty long. We might have to break this up into 2 shows.
No, let's just talk about what the Gorge builds, and we'll be done with it.
All right, though I have a lot more to say about NS. We're gonna have to do another show.
No, I don't have that much more to say.
I have a lot to say.
All right.
Remember all the stories, all the interesting
I don't need to tell
things.
stories. I just want to talk about the game to get people to play it.
I don't know. We probably should have spent more time talking about the fun parts of the game and less describing the individual guns.
The thing is, the game is so amazing and it's so different that you sort of have to describe it so people can understand what's going on.
I think you could have described it in more general terms.
Perhaps. But anyway, the Gorge, he builds things.
I tend to play as the Gorge almost exclusively. Most people don't like being the Gorge, but I like to be the workhorse of the team. And when Scott and I play on a server together, we're usually the Gorge. Now, the Gorge builds structures. And you can build like offensive structures that hurt Marines, and you can build defensive structures that give powers to the aliens. And Gorges also are the ones who will build additional hives, which is kind of how you win the game.
Yeah. So when you're a Gorge, all you can really do is spit this weak-ass acid spit that doesn't do much. You can use this healing spray that heals aliens and alien structures and also kind of hurts Marines.
If the team's winning really like super well, you got multiple hives, you have this thing called a bile bomb where you can take out Marine structures really well. But aside from that, you're pretty much defenseless.
Yes, you're just as little. It's sort of like a pig, and it walks around, and it doesn't do much in terms of combat, but you can spend resources to build things, and building things is really awesome.
Now, the other important thing about the Gorge is that they, for whatever reason, never made a jumping animation. So when the Gorge jumps, it just kind of floats up and floats back down.
It doesn't like wiggle its legs or move its legs in any way. When it jumps, it just goes straight up and straight down.
And a while ago, they said, all right, we're going to fix this. And the community went nuts and said no, because the people who play Gorges are kind of weird, and they want the Gorge to stay exactly the way it is. I agree with them.
I also agree. Basically, the Gorge, if I talked about the aliens being silly, the Gorge is the silliest of the silly.
Partly because while you're gorging, I've built the hive and I built defenses for the hive. Now I'm just waiting for resources, and otherwise I'm just defending whatever point I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, if I start walking around the map, I'm just going to be killed. If I spend resources to become something other than a gorge, then I have to spend more resources to become a gorge again. So a lot of time when you're a gorge, you spend a good minute or two sitting around and waiting, usually with other gorges who are also waiting. So you sit there waiting next to a resource point in a defense tower or whatever, and you just sort of look at each other, spit at each other, jump up and down, be silly.
Yep, a lot of gorges will start dancing, playing the spit game, playing spit tag.
Yeah. Another thing about this game is that when you enter a server, you're not actually put directly into the game. You're put in the ready room. And the ready room is this room that you can walk around and do whatever you want in. And it has doors, and some of the doors say, become an alien. And some of the doors say, become a marine. And some of the doors say, join a random team. But people like to fool around in the ready room. And the ready rooms usually have things in them to fool around with. Like one ready room has a picnic table with some cheese on it.
Yep, one of them has a wet bar.
Yep. And people will fool around in this ready room. I remember one time I was in a ready room, and there was a guy who was a gorge in the ready room, and he was playing music through the voice chat. It was like, and he was dancing, his little gorge. And he did that, and I entered the game, and then I left. I went back to the ready room, and there he was, dancing, still.
And Scott tells me this, and I'm like, all right. So I left the game because we were losing anyway at this point. I was like, whatever.
One funny thing about NS is that you can push the F4 button, and the F4 button, what it does is it sends you to the ready room. If you're in the game and you don't want to play anymore, or you're just kind of tired, take a break, you push F4 and it sends you to the ready room, and then you can enter the game again later. So usually when a team is losing or something happens, everyone will say, everyone F4, 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 and everyone will push F4 and go to the ready room, and the game will sort of reset. That's sort of like the signal, like, everyone F4.
Yeah, a lot of times people will fight to the end, and they'll joke like, everybody F4. But sometimes if it's totally over, everyone F4s just to play another game. But that one time, I F4'd, and then I saw this dancing, and Scott wasn't lying, so I started dancing with him. And more people...
An FPS where people just sit around in a room jumping up and down while music plays.
One time I remember I joined a game, and Scott was there later, and we're all in the ready room, and a few people had joined the game, but not enough to let the game start yet. And everyone just stayed in the ready room, making a pile of Marines, trying to see how high they could get it.
Yeah.
And after a while, someone comes out of the game and says, what the fuck are you guys doing? We're trying to start the game. Because there's like 3 people in the game, and like 15
I think we were piling
people,
up on top of that cheese.
I think we were.
Yes.
But there were like 15 people in the ready room piling up on this cheese.
We're making a little marine pyramid on top of the cheese.
And the guy's like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? But he didn't go back into the game. He watched for a while, and eventually jumped on top of the pile.
Yep, that's the way NS is. It's a serious, really atmospheric RTS FPS that is like no other game, and it is unlike many other gaming experiences. But at the same time, it's just a lot of silliness going on and a really great community of laughing and having a good time.
The community is fantastic. Most of the people who play are awesome. There is almost no shitcocking.
Yep. And I guess we could actually talk about that combat game that was added later, but let's not.
Maybe we could do a separate special on that if we needed to, I guess.
Yeah, special I think would be good. Talk about combat, and then we're done. Basically, they got
we're out of time.
There's another game
We're out
mode
of time.
you can play.
There's a bunch of mods of NS now, and they're mostly crap except for combat.
Yep, that's it.
But the game is, I mean, we've
Play
said this a bunch
Natural
of
Selection.
times.
It's free if you have Half-Life 1.
It is one of the best multiplayer FPSs ever made.
I might go play some right now.
And when I say that, I mean, I'm dead serious, and I will defend that statement to the death.
I will also.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.